Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Vale of White Horse and South Oxfordshire Joint Scrutiny Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Catherine Foxall and I'll be chairing this meeting this evening. We're in Abbey House, Abingdon, and all members, voting members of this committee who are here are in person as required. And we have officers both in the room and joining remotely for three main items this evening. And this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube for the public to view should they wish. So if everybody online have all joined us before, I think, but if you could keep your microphones muted while not speaking, that would be really helpful. And please do raise your virtual hands if you'd like to speak, and we'll try and keep an eye on the screen as well as in the room. For those who are in the room, the evacuation procedure in the event of emergency is to evacuate through the nearest exit, which is through the corridor around to our right, and please assemble in the car park. If anyone needs a break, there's water in the foyer and there's a toilet as well. We have got really big items on the agenda this evening, so we will have a few minute break, probably after the second big item, I think. So everybody stretch their legs, get a drink. If you could please keep mobile phones silent or off unless that's where your papers are, committee members, in which case you're very welcome. And please don't use them during the meeting. Then at the end of the meeting, we'll confirm that the live stream has ended, and please remember to sign out as you leave. Just to remind anybody, I don't think, do we have any public?
I haven't had any notifications, no.
But just a reminder, this is a meeting in public rather than a public meeting. And so we ask that people don't shout out or speak other than if registered or invited to speak. Thank you everybody for joining us. There's lots of people in the room. Thank you everybody and thank you committee members. Right, let's crack on. That was my chair's announcements. That'll do. Apologies for absence, item 2. Do we have any apologies?
No apologies.
Okay, and can we just then record the members who are in the room? To do a roll call?
Yeah, we've got, I'm just going around the table, we've got councillors Alexandrine Cantor, we've got Andy Cook, Peter Stevens, Ed Sadler, Joe Robb, and we've got Lee Rawlins and Ron Batstone. And so we have a couple of people who are on their way still, but we are forward.
Yeah, great. And I'd just like to particularly welcome Councillor Peter Stevens to our little committee. You're very welcome, the new member for South Cornwall.
Yes, thank you.
Right, great. So minutes of the last meeting. So this was the meeting that we had on the 15th of July, which Stefan Kravashek was chairing here. And what was discussed, that the main discussions at that meeting were the BIFA annual performance report for 2023 and the new waste resources and street cleansing strategy, as well as transformation program updates. So yeah, does anybody who was here at the last meeting have any comments on the accuracy of those minutes? Would somebody like to, oh sorry, no.
Propose acceptance.
Thank you, Lee. Seconder. Thank you, Ed. Everybody happy to accept those as true record of the last meeting? Fabulous, thank you. I shall sign them at the end. Brilliant. Declarations of interest. So do any of the committee members have any declarations that they need to make of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests or non-registrable interests or conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting? And I will remind people we've got 3 big items this evening. It's the Saba Car Parks contract, a GLL contract to run our leisure and community safety partnership. Brilliant, thank you. Urgent business. I do not have any particular urgent business that I need to speak. Public participation. I don't believe we have anything. No, just confirm that. No, we don't have any registered. Right, so let's move on then to our work schedule and dates for joint scrutiny meetings. Members, if you've got any comments on the attached work schedule that you'd like to make.
I just noticed for the 30th of September, we've got both the future of the FOP and the future delivery of household waste and street cleaning services, which seem to potentially very large debates.
2 large items. Yes, well, I'm sure we can manage our discussions. I think partly the future Oxfordshire partnership may depend on how many members of South and Vale scrutiny meetings want to attend and comment. I know that's also going to joint audit and governance as well later this month. So yes, we have got 2 big items on the 30th of September, but I'm sure we can manage it, but maybe bring some. And then future meetings, it's looking a bit slim, but I'm sure that items will be coming forward. I would note that there was one item on this work programme for this evening that has been removed, and that was the car park options appraisal, which I was informed by officers would be going straight to council instead, and that would be where we'd be having a discussion. So I would say I think possibly I was disappointed that we didn't get a chance to discuss that, but
It's a new bypass thing.
yes. But yes, I think clarifying. I think possibly as a committee, it's also incumbent on us. Partly that was my fault. I was on holiday when that email came through, so I didn't see it until quite late on. But I don't know, Mark, if you.
Well, I think we've corresponded about the scrutiny review that was done by the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, and we have our new monitoring officer, Nick Bennett, who starts on the 14th of October, if I'm correct, and clearly that'll be a piece of work he'll want to take forward. And I think with that will possibly reframe or reinforce what scrutiny is doing, both joint scrutiny, Vale and South, and where you should focus your effort, on the sort of big ticket items that you want to inform what cabinets you need to do.
Yeah.
So I think that it's coming is what I'm saying on that. Yeah. There's reasons for the delay in not taking that review forward.
Okay, yeah. So, but I think in terms of do look at the cabinet work programmes as well, and if there's items you particularly want us to be looking at, do shout. But I think us taking control of our work programme is a really important thing that we need to do. So yes, I apologise on my behalf that that item has dropped off the meeting as well. But do obviously take your comments in full council. And any other comments on the work programme? Okay, thank you so much. Next agenda items. Right, next item moves us to item 8, which is the Saba Car Parks Annual Performance Report for the period 1st of April 2023 to 31st of March 2024. Councillor Mark Coleman, would you like to introduce that item?
We also have James Lorry.
Okay, and we also have Councillor Sam James Lorry from South Oxford online as well. So perhaps Mark, if you want to start, and then if Sam has any comments to add, you'd be very welcome.
Great. Thank
and
you.
if you'd like to explain which officers as well, that would be really helpful.
So, good evening. So, Councillor Mark Coleman, I'm the Vale Deputy Leader and also Cabinet Member for Environmental Services, and so under which car parks falls me. We have Councillor Sam James Lorry online. He's my counterpart in South. And we have Andrew Busby online, so he's Head of Service. John Backley sat to the side there, and I think we've also got a member of Saba staff online as well.
Is it Nigel?
Nigel, yes.
Nigel, I'm verified.
Okay, so that's Nigel. So hopefully, amongst all that expertise, they'll be able to dig me out of any holes that I'm about to dig myself into. So thank you for the support I'm guessing going to get from them. So I'm bringing this report to the Joint Scrutiny Committee on behalf of both South and Vale Cabinet members. Is to consider the performance of the car park contracts, which is Saba, for the financial year of 2023 to 2024. Contract with Saba is to conduct enforcement of the council's pay and display car parks and maximise income for the fees and the penalty charge notices, which I'll refer to as PCNs or fines from now on. This amounts to regular patrolling and the issuing and processing of PCNs in 13 car parks in South and 14 car parks in the Vale. The original contract was awarded to Vinci for 9 years in August of 2016, and was novated to Indigo, now Saba, in 2018. The contract value for the year 23 to 24 was 278,838 for South and 292,864 for Vale. So the key aspects of the report. As per the review process, officers have evaluated Saba's performance using 3 dimensions, and this is standard across contracts within both councils. The first dimension covers key performance indicators, for example, the time to deal with disputes against PCNs or providing the council with financial reporting. Overall, the key performance indicators showed Saba was performing very well. However, in key performance indicator 3, for reporting, whilst the top line result was 98% and green, the sub KPI for the number of patrols of car parks was slightly below target with 92%. This was due to some staff turnover of civil enforcement officers who patrol car parks and issue the PCNs, and difficulties in recruiting to these posts. Saba did reach their full staffing level by the end of the reporting period. For key performance 8, for asset condition, overall, the top line result was also green with 97%. However, with this KPI, there was a sub KPI scoring 80% due to some faults with car park pay and display machines not being repaired in time. Appendix A provides a table with all the key performance indicators. The 2 sub KPIs as described above were amber, but as other KPIs within the group green, the average key performance indicator score across all areas was 99%, which is an increase from the 97% last year. The head of service has made the judgment that the Saba performance for this first dimension should be rated as excellent. The second dimension measures the customer satisfaction of this service. 331 invites were sent out by Saba to customers following their contact with the car parking team. This does exclude those who've been issued with PCNs. This is an increase on the 142 sent out last year. The survey is included as a link in email correspondence sent by Saba asking customers to complete a questionnaire. Last year, there were no responses to this questionnaire. This year, Saba received 12 responses. Given the low amount of feedback, it is difficult to provide an accurate rating, but based on these replies, based on just these replies, but 83% of respondents rated Saba as average or above. In reviewing this dimension and in making their assessment, officers have considered that no formal complaints about Saba have been received, along with anecdotal evidence witnessed by staff collaborating with Saba staff in the offices and in hearing how they deal with the customers on the phone. The head of service has judged this second dimension as excellent, which reflects the effort made by Saba to try and increase feedback from users this year. Lastly, the third dimension measures what council officers judge to be the performance of Saba. The feedback from the 4 main council officers who have regular contact with the contractor was that Saba staff are dependable, professional, and that communication is easy and friendly. Officers also appreciate where Saba has identified issues and raised them with the council, for example, with discrepancies over income, and this has been dealt with promptly before becoming a major issue. Taking all 3 assessments into account, the head of service has made an overall assessment for Saba's performance for 23-24 as excellent. So this committee then is asked to consider the performance of Saba in delivering the parking services for the period 1 April 23 to 31st of March 24, and to make any comments before a final assessment is made. Thank you very much. I'll now try and answer the questions, and if they're too technical, I'll palm them off.
Thank you. Councillor James Laurie, did you have anything you wanted to add? Or I'll take that as a no.
No, nothing to add on that. I think Mark's covered it absolutely fantastically.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just a clarification on what is PCN.
PCN it's the penalty charge notice PCN.
Okay.
I did put it in full at the beginning, but then
sorry.
Yeah, went into the abbreviation afterwards. So it's the ticket you get on your car. Yeah. Not that you would have had one.
That's why she doesn't know what one is. Amazing.
Lee, do you want to start us off?
Yeah.
I think overall, obviously, this report is very positive. Just a quick question though. I think we noted before there were challenges with recruitment, and we asked some questions about pay rates.
Yes.
And I just wondered what the update on the pay rates that apply is, given that recruitment is a bit of a challenge.
So I can ask one of the officers to do that, or if Nigel's perhaps able to answer. I don't know whether there was a pay rise and to what degree that was this year.
Yes, so obviously it was a big concern through the course of the year that we're talking about, but towards the end of the year, SABA and natural changes within pay rates, we built upon that so that we're very, very, very competitive in the local market as well. So we've leveled it out. We're as competitive as any other in the area at the moment.
And does that represent a minimum pay rate or a fair living wage, or what
It's the I think you call it the national living wage.
Okay.
I think that was passed as a motion within council, wasn't it? But sorry, with the bail, but we would ask the contractors to pay the national living wage.
Indeed.
Both councils passed that motion, on contract renewal. So
On contract renewal,
It was actually the real living wage, which is even higher than the national living wage. But obviously that can't be requested until such time as the contract comes up for renewal. And but thank you for the answer. Really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Alexandra.
I can't find the page, but you said that before you didn't have any customer feedback, and then you had 12. I was wondering, what did you do to get actually customer to reply, and is there any plan to get more feedback in the future, like maybe to improve how customer could?
Yes, so this is an ongoing problem, and so it was last year we had no responses whatsoever, but I would say we only sent out 141 requests, and this year we sent out considerably more and had 12 responses. So I think we discussed this quite some length last year. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but if people don't want to reply to response, then to a survey, then they won't do it. I think the fact that we've had 12 is actually.
Did we change it? What were the changes that led to those?
I don't know whether the officers or whether perhaps this might be again for Nigel, but I think it's now that we just put the survey on the bottom of every bit of correspondence that goes out to anyone, apart from those who've got a pencil charge notice.
Okay.
I suspect the feedback they would give might not be totally unbiased.
It'd be interesting to receive.
It could be, I hate you, but you were right.
Sorry. Yes.
The key performance targets. Who actually sets those?
There's a question. I think they're agreed at the beginning of the contract with the officers and the contractor.
Okay, because I'm picking up on excellent, which is great. And then of course there's that very glowing 360 report, which uses words like sterling and despite overachievement and so forth, but there's no clear description about what that is. I mean, from a customer's perspective, i.e. the public, if they're reading this report, they just go, well, that's very simple. And it looks like the key performance targets are agreed between the council and the and the contractor.
Yeah.
Then they're all met, and they go excellent, and then you get this lovely 360 report that kind of describes it. You know, they can't do any wrong, basically. And I picked up the points as well on how it's quite difficult to get feedback on a subject like this, because actually, if you go and ask the public what they think about things like car parks, it's probably not a lot, really. I imagine. I mean, it's quite difficult for the contractor to really gain external focus on that. If the council are the client rather than the public, aren't they, in a sense?
The customer, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what your question is there.
So Ed, I could probably jump in. So this question has come up before because when we've been looking at performance and everything, there's a kind of review framework.
Yeah.
And we did specifically ask in the last meeting if we can look at the review framework, particularly given the number of contracts that are up for renewal. Mark did give me a very good reason why that can't be done just yet, but it will be done. And I should have said, actually, when we talked about work programme, review framework is going to go on our work programme as something for us to look at ahead of all the contract renewals, so that we can make start to understand how these KPIs are set, how we can make them more robust, how we can make sure they give us the information that we need, both as scrutiny.
So improve the rigour.
Yeah. If we can, so we're going to look at the review framework as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to that, I mean, there's a number of things changing at the moment. The corporate plans are up for renewal. The corporate plan performance framework we use around that is quite onerous. There's a lot of information there. Is it giving you what you need as scrutiny members to focus properly? We question that. We've also had several years now using this performance framework for our external contracts. Your feedback and other members' feedback on, is it right? Is it a bit clunky? Does it give you what you want? Is also part of that process as well. So looking at our whole, what we call our corporate delivery framework, which is a fancy word for saying how we manage contract, how we manage services, and how we report that to the public.
Okay. Apologies, Chair, if I'm going over old ground.
No, absolutely no. It is. I should have mentioned it when we looked at, but that is an ongoing discussion, and I will keep bringing it up because I know committee members were all keen to look at that, and particularly given the number of performance reviews and the number of big contracts we have that are renewed. Now is a good time to do that. So, yeah, thank you for raising that. I think I had Andy Cook, then Joe.
And mine was just a comment that if we are struggling to get responses, then at least it doesn't signify that there aren't a load of people who are really angry, because they're going to respond.
They'd let you know.
As a rule of thumb, if no one's telling you anything, they're content, because that's what people do.
I did go onto Google to look at reviews of our car park outside the beacon, and they basically were all quite happy. Nice car park, cheap, convenient. There we go. Did you want to add anything else, Andy?
Car parks.
Just a car park. It exists. Jack.
I just have thank you for all this, Mark. I just had a quick question on key performance indicator 8, asset condition. And that sort of performed less well than other key performance indicators on the basis that the ticket machines are old. As we all know, those of us who've used them, they are old. Could you talk us through that? Do we own the machines, or does SABRA own the machines? How does it work? I looked at the table that Kat sent over, the chair sent over earlier today, which shows the depreciation that we've got on those machines. And I also understand there may be a capital bid going in. So could you talk us through that, please?
I'll ask John to do that, John Backley, because he can explain how we got the machines and why we're in the position we're in.
Of course, please do. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, so the machines were installed by SABA back when the contract was let with the 5 councils contract back in 2016. So as part of the service agreement, the councils said to it was Vinci at the time, because Vinci had the overall. They won the contract to provide the whole of the service, and Vinci subcontracted it to Indigo as it were. And as part of that contract, it was, well, you SABA provide the machines and you maintain them and make sure they're working, and we'll measure you on that, and make sure when they're not working that they're fixed promptly. When the contract comes to an end, the machines will stay where they are and become the responsibility and the ownership of the councils.
Gotcha. Okay, and that is when there might be a capital bid go in, or a what's it called? A
growth bid.
A growth bid to renew, replace those machines with.
When SABA, when Vinci Indigo SABA, when the contract, 5 councils contract was awarded, it was for an initial term of 9 years.
Yeah.
So 2016 up to 2025, and so Saba, the contractor, installed the machines with the idea that they would last 9 years. It wasn't factored in the fact that there was potentially an extension to that contract. So that is why we come to the end of 9 years next year, 2025, and we all know whoever you've used the machines that they're coming to the end of them.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Brilliant. Thanks. So then the depreciation figures in the table, we're using those figures to offset against our income from the machines. So it's our depreciation.
So I think you're referring to the car park fees and charges report, and there's a table in there which is about the depreciation. That is not necessarily on the car park machines. That is depreciation of the land of the car parks themselves.
Really?
I should explain that this table. So thank you, Mark. I followed up on a note in the minutes from when we discussed this item last year, where we'd asked if we could look more at the revenue. And Mark kindly pointed out that those figures were available in the report that went to Cabinet in December. And thank you, John, for supplying those figures to us today. And that is what I sent you guys literally at 20 to 6 this evening. So yeah, and the question really was an interest in, and it was about KPA, is how much is that costing us? The amount of downtime that those machines are not working for, are we losing income? And also how much is it costing to fix those machines, and where are those costs being allocated? Which I think
we haven't covered the cost of the repairs, and we don't know, I guess, the cost of lost income, because do we?
So check the responsibility of Saba to repair the machines. So that is included in the one contract price that we've got with Saba to make sure the machines are working. When the machines are not working, there's normally 2 machines in a car park, which is why if one goes down, you've got the other machine. We found that the majority of people today pay by contactless card. So when the machine is perhaps in the winter, a little bit damp, a little bit cold, or the coins are falling through, people can pay with contactless card, and that's the majority of how we take the income of the machines. It's contactless card. That's number one. Number two, the second preferred way of paying is by phone. So if the machines aren't working, we know that there is an app, and once you get used to it, it can be really useful because you don't have to go anywhere near the machine, and you can extend your time. If you're sitting in a cafe and you want a little bit more time in town, you can pay for more time to be in the car park. That's the second most preference, and the third preference is to pay with coins.
So the roughly £250,000 premises repair and maintenance costs that we're seeing in the car park income and expenditure, that's not primarily going on vending machines then?
No.
Good. Okay.
They're not that bad.
No, it's not going anywhere near machines because we're paying Saba to provide the service.
Right, excellent.
Which includes providing the machine.
That's excellent. Thank you ever so much. And yeah, as I said, thank you for getting that information.
My apologies for not seeing it all out. I genuinely was at an external meeting, so I didn't get to see your email until much later.
Yeah, that's fine. Excellent. Lee.
My points were similar to or linked to what Joe was raising. I wanted to be sure that we were being fair to Saba in terms of the fact that the equipment was old, and John's explained that contractually it was actually their responsibility. So that is resolved. And John's also mentioned when it might be that the equipment will change, and I was just hoping that we might see a statement of sort of a progression path towards when we will actually bring forward that change of equipment. And I had a sort of linked thought in my head. I mean, John's explained some of the issues that relate to modern payment, and I've been amazed going around at how many tiny car parks in the back of Beyond on holiday and wherever else are now driven by cameras and so forth. So the viability seems to be there even for very small car parks. So I'm sure it would be For ours, there's opportunities going forwards to have a different approach. And one final thing that occurred to me, and of course, to some extent, cameras and this are in conflict. But if you're going to the machine, it could be that you could have a very simple customer satisfaction feedback of good, bad, or whatever, and pop in a couple of words of what it's about. But if we go over to cameras, that may be academic and dead in the water. But just a thought. But I would like to see coming forward a plan of how we're moving towards new equipment and thinking about it.
Yeah. And I would note that was also one of the comments from last year when we discussed that.
Just make a comment about the automatic number plate recognition. So for the public car parks, there's a legal requirement to put a ticket onto a car. Whereas a supermarket, they can use automatic number plate recognition and they can issue a fixed penalty because you're 15 minutes late. We can't do that. So the automatic number plate recognition in our car parks would actually, other than triggering a message perhaps to a CEO to go and put a ticket on a car, it really would add little value. Now,
so you're saying we can't use that system?
No,
legally.
Yeah.
That's sorry, CEO is something enforcement officer.
It's civil enforcement.
Civil enforcement.
So the guys who you see going around checking. So we in a public car park have to physically have a ticket put onto a car.
Why?
I think also there's another aspect. So you might get a fixed penalty notice, not just because you overstayed your parking, but if you've parked it, where you shouldn't be, or you've taken up 2 bays. So, and of course that automatic number plate recognition would do that. Now that being said, and John doesn't know this yet, but I have, in conversation with other people, said, well, actually, if that is the legislation, should we not be challenging the legislation?
Yes.
So I can't promise that's going to be changed in before the end of this contract, but why would we be any different to a supermarket? There might be a very good reason, I don't know it, but I'm going to be asking the question.
So you physically have to have a person and a bit of paper.
Well, you don't need the person, but you do need the paper, and I can't see another way around that.
Little milk robot.
John, do you have any knowledge about why that is the legal situation?
It's a different piece of legislation that applies to local authorities. We issue car parking orders, and within those orders, you have to physically issue the PCN by hand onto the windscreen.
Shuttling council as private operators are not.
The opposite. If anybody's driven over the Dartford Bridge or used the Birmingham Toll or anything like that, or a bus lane, and you receive something in the post, and they've got a photo and your number plate, and you can't argue with it. No. That's a totally different piece of legislation because they can deliver those PCNs in the post. Council can't do that.
Thank you. I would just like to pick up on Lee's other point, which is about work. Is there work being done towards the replacement of those machines, given that we have acknowledgement in this report of I think you used the term end of life. So our cabinets.
Well, I would link it with the follow-on with whatever the next contract's going to be for the car parks, which comes out at the end of September 25. So.
But we need to prep this in advance.
That would be the car park options appraisal that's not now on our work programme.
That'll be it.
I think an IT project and an equipment project like that needs a lead in a different way to a contract myself.
Yeah. And I guess one of the difficulties we've had in the past is when there hasn't been sufficient lead-in or freedom to choose, and we've ended up renewing a contract where perhaps if we had more preparation and time, we might not have renewed the contract. No offence to Saba, who have done very well. It's, but it's important. I agree, Lee, that we have a lead-in, that this process starts.
But I think
Do
I'm
we
a
have
bit
any
concerned.
questions for Mark, and then we can go into our discussion?
I'm a bit concerned that we're going off the piece of this.
No,
is
no.
talking about Saba's performance,
Yes.
Yeah.
not about what will happen at the end of their contract.
Do we have any more questions for our cabinet member?
Just very briefly, going back to customer satisfaction, I know it's very difficult with only 12 responses. But if you look at the graphs in B, there's a degree of dissatisfaction, obviously, with customers. Some say they strongly disagree with the fact that Saba are clear in verbal communication, for example. That's up to 25%. So I know the problem is that the people who respond may be the more dissatisfied ones, but I wonder whether excellent is quite the whether this should just be good rather than excellent, because there obviously is some dissatisfaction there.
Well,
But it comes down by
people.
Well, I mean, I must admit, my first thought was that we couldn't really specify
It's not
customer satisfaction at all, because
Statistics
they don't have
valid
sufficient numbers
data
to do it. So perhaps we ought to have said,
it kind of links with the point that I think Ed was making, which is, have we got the KPIs right? But a percentage is a percentage,
Yes.
so you have to, you have to draw the line somewhere. So if the percentage is above your target, then it would be wrong to say, oh well, I'm going to give you a good when you actually achieve 99%. The fact that we'd like it to be more than that, or
the good person.
yeah.
yes,
Which I think is I'm not saying it's clunky, but yeah, as Andy said, much more eloquent than me, that when you're working with small figures like that, they're almost,
They're meaningless.
yeah.
yes, I mean, I would prefer you to say if the number of responses is below a certain amount, it can't really assess this.
So if we disregard that completely, then it still works out as excellent because the other two dimensions are excellent.
Then it goes back to, yes, what we also thought, which is perhaps right anyway. What we don't want is next year the numbers to change slightly, and then somebody picks up the fact that this has improved by 50% or gone down by 50%, and you end up it's only one or two people have changed.
If we only get one response and he's very unhappy, that's 100% bad.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So we're being asked to consider the performance of Saba in delivering the car park operations contract for the period 1st of April 23 to 21st of March 24, and make any comments before a final assessment on performance is made. So does the committee have any comments, or on the basis of the discussion we've just had, the questions we've asked, are there any comments that we want to make to the cabinets before their final assessment is made? Alexandra.
Not to the cabinet, but just to the officer and everyone involved, that congratulations for moving from good to excellent.
Yeah, so we'd like to, we'll note the improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Lee.
Likewise, on the evidence and against the metrics, this is well deserved. And actually, when you look at the charts, there's been a steady improvement across the piece year on year. And that's exactly what we would ask a contractor to do for us. And so on that premise, I think the scoring is absolutely correct. And we have to say thank you for that achievement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just to, I don't know how to put it, maybe sharpen up the 360 to report somehow. I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite, I just don't have a good feeling about it. I think it's short, it's very complimentary, but I don't know, something could be just slightly improved there.
The 360. So do you want to identify specifically which bit you're talking about?
So because I mentioned the words sterling job and despite overachievement and things like that, it's a very glowing report.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost
Too glowing. Not very British, is it? Well, I mean,
it's just what a fantastic job, good chap. It's like surely there's things there that could be improved. So I think reflect on that a little bit.
Okay. I think this comes back to our question of how do you keep performing when everything's marked at 100%?
That's true, but there's always a consider this, isn't there? There's always continue doing all these things, but maybe consider these things, and I don't really see that in there. I think it could probably be a bit more reflective somehow.
I think my one comment would be particularly about the staff and the relationship with staff. There is clearly a good line manager, and I'm concerned that line manager is perhaps a single point of failure, which should be avoided in any circumstances. But so I think it's worth, whoever that line manager is has clearly been doing an excellent job in maintaining staff morale and reducing the turnaround in staff, and hopefully they will stay, whoever they are. So Andrew Busby, I think, has got his hand up apparently.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good evening, committee. Thank you for reviewing the paper this evening. Just to clarify, that 360 is written by the contractor rather than the council giving a overall report on the contractor. But yeah, very much take the feedback received this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So in terms of comments, are there any additional comments we want to make other than noting the continual improvement? Carry on, but
yeah. Carry on car parking.
Carry on car. All right, okay. And I would note from our discussion that yes, the kind of review framework where I think we can look at these 360s and KPIs, how do we improve when everything's 100%, that will be coming to this committee in due course.
Going forward, Chair, there was one small comment that they made in their contractor reaction, in which they say SABA would ask for a level of mitigation to be considered by the council relative to the performance of the KPI that's about maintaining the aged machines. And I'm just interested in what John thinks of that. And I think you made the point, John, that contractually, actually, it is their responsibility. Just how you would see that request.
Yeah. I kind of agree. Contractually, they have to provide the machines. They knew the term of the contract. It is their responsibility to provide the machines. I don't think there is any mitigation. I'm sorry.
Okay. So perhaps we can note that we don't agree, that we perhaps have a differing opinion on whose responsibility the machines are to SABA, and perhaps that could be picked up by.
I'm not sure that SABA are saying that they don't believe it's their responsibility. I think what they're saying is the age of the machines means that they are going to break more regularly. What John and I would say is, but when the contract was let, it was let for a defined period, and therefore we expect the infrastructure to survive that defined period.
Yeah. Okay. So whether perhaps that could be reinforced.
Replace or repair.
Okay. Does that make sense for the minutes? All right.
Yes. Can I just say, I don't know whether Sam wants to say any conclusions, but can I say formally here to thank you to the contractor for the support they've given us through this year, and can I thank the officers, John and Andrew, for putting this report together. It's a really tricky one, for all the reasons that you've just said. How do you mark when you're up at nearly 100%? So, but I do thank them for the effort that's gone into it. There's a lot of underlying work. So, and thank you to Nigel for supporting us tonight.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, or are we happy to move on to the next item? Thank you, Mark. You're a regular guest of Joint Scrutiny. Lovely to see you again. Thank you.
It does.
That's right. As long as you can see it. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we just there's more people on Candida's screen than there are on the screen up here. So if there's anybody who has got their hand up,
I can see.
Candida can see you. Thank you. Thank you everybody involved in that item. Right, next item, I've still got some up here, is item 9, which is review of GLL performance. As I said, we'll take a break after this item unless anybody desperately needs to take a break now. Everybody happy to continue another half an hour or so?
Maggie is here at 9 because Georgina.
Okay. So can you just let me know? Apparently we have Maggie. Do we have Maggie online? Maggie Phillip over Rivers from South Oxfordshire.
Can you not see me? I'm waving.
No.
Let me see if I'm already doing this.
Something to do with screen resolution, I think.
I'm going to try. A little bit nervous, it will switch the other one off. So
while Candida is getting the screen ready, I would like to welcome Councillor Sue Corn from Vale, who is Cabinet member for this item. Sue, you're very welcome, and please introduce your thoughts.
Thank you. So yes, I'm joined by Councillor Philippa Rivers, who is standing in for Councillor Heritage South. And from the officers, we have Andrew Busby and Ben Raymond, and also colleagues from GLL are here. So we have Gary Starkey, who's the GLL Head of Service, and Kevin Williams, who's the GLL Partnership. So this performance report relates to year 23-24, which is the 9th reporting year of the leisure contract, and provides details of the performance from Greenwich Leisure Limited, or GLL, in delivering the leisure management contract for both South and Vale councils. So the reporting dimensions are based on the review framework used by the councils, and these indicate the scoring criteria for the 3 dimensions and an overall scoring of the year's performance. Officers have assessed and quantified the delivery of dimensions in all 3 categories. So for dimension 1, which are the key performance targets, the overall rating is good. Key performance target 1 and 2, which are around the number of visits, are showing a number of overall increase against the target set, and numbers almost returning to pre-pandemic levels, which are similar to leisure industry expectations. This growth is also reflective of those seen in key performance target 3 and 4, which look at membership numbers, showing membership growth and leisure card increases. Key performance target 6, which looks at the performance against the transition plan, was disappointing. However, targets were set prior to significantly increased utility costs, where the input of these costs are reflective of the target being missed. That said, when looking back at the performance target 5 at the income performance, it shows a positive outturn, generating some revenue. Key performance target 7 on social value has improved on the previous year, 22-23, with a further increase of £7 per individual, now being a total of £99 per attendee to our leisure centres in their social value impact. These are around crime reduction, education and NHS services. Key performance target 10 and 11, which are around energy and water usage, show a continued reduction through in terms of the energy through slightly off target. However, with significant decarbonisation projects imminent, expectations are that this score will continue to improve for 24-25, and the same we are showing a reduction in water. A majority of the reduction was related to a significant leak at Abbey Sports Centre, which has since been resolved. So around dimension 2, which is around customer satisfaction. So overall rating here was excellent. We had a response rate of over 1,200 surveys from all leisure centres across both South and Vale, with an overall score of excellent, with an overall score of 4.39. All leisure centres during this performance reporting year scored above the 4.29 requirement, achieving excellence at each individual centre, with pool water temperature and quality being the main concerns. Previous year, our 22-23, reported maintenance and cleanliness, which has seen significant improvement. On dimension 3, that's the council's satisfaction, the overall rating is good. Notable changes are officers identified that the quality of the relationship and partnership between council officers and GLL has improved in the reporting year. A configuration of the partnership manager role has allowed a fluent approach to day-to-day management of the contractor across both districts. When financial information, whilst this was a concern and specifically delays in receiving that information in the year we are talking about here, the current year GLL have adopted a new process to ensure that the sale is delivered in a much more timely fashion. So we should expect this to improve in 24-25. So in summary, this is a positive report and is indicative of the ongoing constructive relationship between the councils and the GLL team, which remains strong. There continue to be improvements made across all facilities under the leisure management contract to improve and enhance customers' experience. GLL should be commended for their successful operations and striving to reduce the economic impact being faced in the industry. The future still remains uncertain in the direction of the cost of living and the continued rise in energy costs. But we have GLL colleagues here to answer any questions that committee members may have.
Alexandra, thank you ever so much, Sue, for your comments. Maggie, did you have anything else you wanted to add in addition?
I just wanted to thank GLL for, there's been, obviously I'm not currently the cabinet member, but historically communications in terms of social media, external communications were in need of improvement. It looks like things have improved quite a bit in that respect, and yes, that's been really positive, and I actually follow better and personally I have observed that there is quite a lot of communications happening, so that's, thank you very much for that, but happy to answer questions as well.
Right. Thank you, Maggie. Alexandrine, do you want to start us off?
So on the performance, the council satisfaction was there and became good, and I was wondering what change did we change process, maybe change stuff that had better, like what happened that made it better, so maybe then we can replicate it with other contracts. Like what happened?
I think that one I will probably hand over to a very competent Ben here, who could give you more information on that one.
Just really comment, Councillor. Just to give you a heads up, with the previous year, there were two partnership managers, one working in South, one working in Vale. And we found that there was quite a lot, GLL may be able to jump in on this as well. We found there's miscommunication between the two partnership side of things. We were effectively working South, which we've got glad to see Kevin here today, and Kevin has taken the role across the Vale. So we've been seeing a lot more continuity across both South and Vale. They've been able to work closely with the staff to support with each of the districts where that might have been competing previously. But Kevin's been around for a number of years within the South and Vale contract, so a heavy amount of experience in the leisure centres across both the districts, working in a number of those sites. But what we did find is obviously more of the continuity of communication between both of those districts, especially when you look at the overall operations from customers' perspective of using those sites, their membership cross uses across South and Vale, the maintenance and servicing cross use of services there. But we, in terms of that role and that change, we've seen that improvement. And
yeah, I'd like to jump here because Kevin doesn't like talking about himself, so I'd like to work a little bit. But I think having Kevin across the whole piece had a bit of a clearer strategy across both partnerships. Would like to reassure you that it's not a single point of failure. And there's another supporting networks around Kevin as well, but kind of we took last year's feedback on as well. We've really tried to hone in on areas where improvement was necessary. So, for example, particularly Farringdon Leisure Centre was picked up as an item. Last 12 months, we've really concentrated in terms of looking at the culture of that centre, a number of physical changes, and plans for the next 6 to 12 months are quite interesting for that building as well. But that was kind of across every centre, had a clear plan in place that's been sort of being followed. So it's little bits across the board really that I think has really helped with the general direction of travel.
Just to add on to that as well, the general managers tend to have one meeting in the group. There's a lot more networking between the South general managers as well as the Vale general managers now, and feedbacking on any support that they can provide across the centres. New general managers starting, have got experienced general managers across the piece.
Thank you. Jo.
Thank you. A couple of quick ones. Nice to see you all. Thank you very much, and congratulations on a good report. I just had a question regarding complaints on page 40. I don't like going into this, but page 44, complaints about cleanliness. What constitutes a complaint? Because speaking sort of anecdotally, when you look on Facebook, people are like, the change rooms are dirty, whatever. And you see it all the time. But, I've never had a problem with the change rooms. It's a leisure centre. It's a public leisure centre. It's never going to look pristine like your own bathroom after it's been cleaned, So what constitutes a complaint? And I wonder how we get to only 4, because given what you hear, the noise around the cleanliness just on Facebook, it doesn't seem to align with this tiny number of complaints. So I just wonder if you get a bad rap.
Yeah, I think just to support with that is what we constitute complaint at the council is when it comes direct to us, and then there's not been an opportunity for GLL to manage that complaint. So we do log. I think we had 16 last year, but they weren't in comparison to what we had the previous year, where it was very much directed toward Wantage. But when they come through our leisure inbox, we log those, and where what we do encourages the customers to go to GLL first.
Yeah.
If we enter a stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 complaint, again, we would give the operator that opportunity to do that. If they didn't resolve it, we would take that stage 1 and then thereafter.
Okay, so it might be obviously that people are coming to the desk and say it's looking a bit rough in there, and then you would send someone in to sort it out, and it would not come to the council then in that case at all.
No, the GLL do also log all of their complaints themselves through their they have a customer service role now, which we saw over the last couple of years after COVID. The way they managed, and it's a compliment to the team there, is GLL have taken this approach to have a head office call service. So it takes all of those calls away from the front line direct desk at reception. We were a bit dubious about it to start off with because it was coming out of COVID, and it was a bit of a difficult time for everyone to manage that service. But we do not receive any complaints. I don't think they receive the complaints directly at the centres now. So the receptionists are almost becoming concierges. So they're actually providing a bit more time for the customers coming through the door to manage their membership type and what they want to use the activities for.
Can I make a comment?
I've got hands up all over the place. Mark, did you?
Yeah, just to
Mark, and then Maggie, I'll come to you then.
Just to add to what Ben's just said there, I mean, I manage corporate complaints across the council, and the way we categorise it is if you went into a change room and it was dirty, I would class that as a service request. You're unhappy with the standard, you give the contractor opportunity to fix it. If you keep going back and it keep being dirty, you would raise a complaint and we'd deal with it as a complaint. It's that initial dissatisfaction you can resolve quickly.
Yeah.
If it's not resolved, then it becomes a complaint. That's the kind of what the thinking that we have across the council, and that also goes through to the contractor as well.
So what I'm taking from this is in the real world, obviously people in a busy leisure centre will have issues with the cleanliness. They'll deal with that directly at the desk. It will be sorted, and it's where what we're seeing here is the filtration of a small number of bigger issues, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks,
Maggie. Did you want to?
Yeah. Just a comment on that as well. So what I found historically is that a lot of the cleanliness related complaints were in our wet side facilities, because it is literally impossible to keep on top of it, though I know that JLL staff are trying their best. But you will always get a little bit of muck, where a child's walked in with their shoes or whatever. So they do happen. Just to point out that there's been 2.2 million visits, which have resulted in just under 300 complaint tickets within the GLL system, and only 16 coming to the council. So just to kind of put that into context, which I think is really good, because these will always happen, and I think the GLL have done a good job to minimise them and address them. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Maggie. On my list, I've got Peter first.
Hi. Yeah, I just wondered if you could explain the key performance target 12. So it's down as 4, but customer satisfaction is later on is excellent. So what that related to?
KPT 12 being the annual user satisfaction.
So yes, I must admit, I kind of queried this one as well, because I thought, well, if that says 4, then how can then we have an overall score of good? Excellent, I think so. But actually, there are quite a few dimensions of it, and it's collecting different data. But rather than me give you my very, very potted version, I'm going to give you back to Ben, because he has a much greater understanding of this, and so that will answer your question more. Yeah.
Quite an interesting one is the customer satisfaction surveys that are delivered in Dimension 2. These are paper-based exercise and paper-based questions and surveys and satisfaction, which the GLL team support with completing those with customers at the leisure centre. The Net Promoter Score is an annual user survey that GLL adopts, where a customer will complete that online after their visit, and potentially what. Trying to explain Net Promoter Score in sort of a summary. Retail companies such as Apple use it, but they capture your customer response while you bought an Apple iPad. So naturally, you would find a positive indicator in terms of the Net Promoter Score. The leisure industry slightly struggles with that, because where they're capturing their Net Promoter Score, and I'll allow GLL to sort of answer this a little bit more as well, is they capture the Net Promoter Score, but that person could have been there for 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 years, and their membership might be reflective of how they've felt that service over a period of time, not just a snapshot in a period of time that they're turning up to an Apple store. So they're sort of marked quite differently, but I'll allow GLL to sort of mention a bit more around that.
Yeah, I can help about that. So the Net Promoter Score is based on one question, which is how likely to refer us.
Yeah.
So you don't get a huge, although the survey is a lot bigger. We as a KPT look at that one figure. When the questionnaires that we do on the council are a couple of pages long, and we're able to, as we said earlier, with the concierge, the receptionist turned into concierge now. We've got a lot better service at the front desk, where we're able to sit down, go through with customers what they're raising, and work it out that way. But the NPS is a very quick snapshot. When we do it once a year, and it's just one question that we scored on.
Okay, I mean, I still feel that's slightly revealing though, because if that's online once a year, it probably reflects how people think after a period of time, rather than actually each visit, people are pretty happy during the visit. So maybe, I don't know, but so maybe it should be done more frequently than annually, or maybe you should look the way that the retail sector does it and do the NPS score as part of your kind of on-site customer satisfaction, just to get a bit more relevance to it. I think I'm not sure what it tells, but it's different.
Yeah, I think one thing I said with the actual survey itself, it's really trying to proactively go and get customers to tell us exactly what it is. So the onus of this is for us to actually react, and the whole purpose is to actually have an action plan off the back of what customers are telling us. So whilst I mean, for us, we're not satisfied with that. That's disappointing for us. We moved forward quite a lot from last year,
Yeah.
but we're still not where we need to be.
Okay.
But rather than kind of float along in ignorance as such, we really try to go out and get as much information as we can from customers about where there are pockets of where we can improve the service, and then react to that so we can continuously improve. So it's not defence. We'd like to do better on that particular scoring, but the key focus is to actually ascertain the reasons why certain customers feel that way, and for us to be able to respond accordingly to them.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to move us on because we've got lots of people lined up here. So I've got Ed, then Andy, then Lee, then Alexandrine. So Ed.
It was nice to see in the report the solar array. I think that's a really positive move forward. So I just wanted to comment on that. KPIs again. The growth since 2019 2020 98%. It's kind of hardly surprising, is it? I don't know. Again, I don't know what that really tells you. Well, it's understandable. And then finally, the only other thing I was to bring up was I've lost it. It's one of those things.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. I haven't literally just been imagining.
It'll come back when someone else starts.
I know.
So was there a specific thing you wanted the
There was
cabinet
going to be a question, and that was the third thing.
We'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Andy.
I've got a 2-point question, general, and then a rather specific one. Looking at the KPTs, I'm reminded that if an output is orders of magnitude different from the target, KPT may have been wrong. Looking at KPTs 3, 4, and 6. 3, 1% increase achieved, 86%, 86 times greater. KPT 4, 1.5% target, 87% increase. So brilliant to have got this, but just a general question of maybe the KPTs were set wrong. Should we look at them in the future? But the big honking one, and it's the mammoth in the room.
Yeah.
KPT 6. Whenever we get to money, it's always really quite important. And the target was more than a 20% shortfall on the transition plan performance. And instead of minus 20%, it was minus 1,243%. I like the precision. But I have been looking all the way through to see a why and a wherefore. But unless staffing costs were really honking, was it page 56? I think I put my note down. I may have put the wrong note down. The sign off prior to the utility cost crisis and cost of living crisis, both of which are related. And it's right next to the one that said about how utility costs have fallen, which I did find ironically amusing. But what my key question is, what's the route to green? That is always the question that I would get asked on any project that I'm involved in, which had a significant financial shortfall. This one is very, very, very significant, honking grey. And I can't find anything about the route to green, how we're going to get back on that.
Can I try and answer that? If Sue doesn't.
Yes, Maggie, go ahead.
Right. So for those of you who are, for the benefit of those who are newer to this scrutiny, the joint scrutiny committee, or indeed don't remember the transition plan, this is effectively part of the support package and really details how GLL are going to pay us back some of the money that they owe us as part of the support package and some of the impacts from COVID. Now, this is obviously looking at both income and expenditure, and we saw in the previous KPT that income has improved. But on the expenditure side, we've got not just utility costs, but we also have staffing costs, which are the result of GLL wishing themselves proactively to become a real living wage employer. And so, of course, that has kind of caused issues to that side of the equation, which I think is really positive, by the way. So ultimately, for those of you, some of you will remember that effectively GLL have to pay us back by the end of the contract of the extension, which was agreed as part of the deed variation, which is now 2026. And if they don't, they have 3 further years to pay us back, but they are going to incur interest for the duration of those years. So I guess the hope is, the route to green is that ultimately they will have to pay us back. So again, not ideal. It would have been good to see progress against the transition plan, but in terms of the interests of the council, those are the risks are as much as possible mitigated. Does that help? And
so
then
the route to green is effectively, if they don't pay us back, we go after them 3 years down the line.
Yeah, I hope that yes, absolutely, they're liable.
Not to be harsh and confrontational, but
And
it's the worst case scenario. Is there a worst case scenario, and can we avoid it? Is that covered internally, or this is probably off topic, in our own budgets of, if we don't have the money, will we have to borrow more temporarily to get there? How will our budget shortfall be impacted upon it?
Maggie, should we just hear from our colleagues at GLL first, and then Maggie,
sorry for sounding confrontational.
Like the worst case scenario.
I'm not going to go around your house and take it.
It's fine.
Honest.
I think you take worst case scenario first of all, and we'll work back from there. So to put your mind at rest in terms of the liability sits with GLL. GLL recognise that liability, and GLL will pay that liability. There's no issue. There's no issue from that perspective. However, it's a GLL issue in terms of we've suffered from COVID impact, then we've had utility prices and cost of living. So it's always been like a perfect storm in relation to general performance against a contract we signed, years and years ago.
Yeah.
However, it's our issue to deal with, although in partnership we've worked on a number of solutions. On a positive front, that the last particularly 9 months have been really encouraging. So all the work that we've said has happened has seen quite a significant growth in membership levels. I don't have the exact figures to hand, but happy to provide them. And the direction of travel looks positive as well from that perspective. There's additional, and it's in the report, work due in terms of all our gym equipment that's due across the partnership that's due to be renewed. There's significant work on the health and fitness products at Tane that will have commercial returns. We're also looking at sort of ways that we can structure the contract to be a bit more VAT efficient as well, which if that comes forward will be positive as well. So the plan for us really within the next, we're running at a deficit at the moment, but within the next 18 months is to get to a sustainable position.
We'd rather you didn't go to the ball, having worked with you for a long time. So
yeah,
we just like to be reassured that you are.
So the liability sits with us.
I know. I'd rather you didn't have that hanging over you as well.
Yeah, and to be fair, our council partners have worked with us to look at a range of different things that we think, whether it be investment that has a clear return, etc., to be as efficient as we possibly can be, whilst staying true to our commitments as a social enterprise by being a real living wage employer, by improving and streamlining our service to have a contact centre for customers, so that customers, when they come in, they're not dealt with somebody who's just a processor. It's somebody who actually talk and help customers with their queries. This all builds to residents having a better experience in the sense that one in terms of their engagement with our staff, one in terms of cleaning, which is still has improved a lot, but it's still got a little bit to go. And that the actual product that they're actually experiencing is a positive one that rivals any private organisation, but at a value for money proposition. So if we get all that right, then we've given ourselves the best possible chance to get as near to the optimum. What that optimum is obviously a little bit thing in the air, but the direction of travel is positive. But as I say, worst case scenario sits with us, and there's no liability for council.
In terms of the score, it was set with the transition plan. So during the time of deed of variation, the support package with COVID. So Gary's mentioned the perfect storm that was set. Those key forecasts were set.
Rather eye catching.
Yeah.
No, I think we've got a very clear answer. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Stu, do you want to finally comment on that?
I did actually, yeah. And I mean, I don't disagree with regards to the key performance targets, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the actual indicators themselves are the wrong ones. But
yeah,
those targets would be sort of.
And I did want to point out that there were two that were massively exceeded as well. That's why I started with those. It's CL shit sandwich, isn't it?
Yeah, the same with KPT 3 and 4. They were set. So we've had went through COVID. You can imagine all of those memberships were wiped whilst the facilities were closed, and it was really difficult to try and set a target where this was naturally going to grow, or people will start to join a concessionary membership because of the cost of living crisis and go for a direct debit membership. So it's credit to the guys for increasing that.
So don't expect 86% improvement next year.
Look, can I add to that just quickly? The two KT, not just to say that we smashed it because of drop-offs with COVID. There's a lot of work going on into those as well in the background to also add in to my team have delivered working with Move Together, and we've introduced some great free membership.
There is a degree of smashing it.
There has been a huge increase, and it's not just solely down to that, but obviously it helps to have a lower start point. But yeah, but I think the delivery has been because of the good work in the background where we've helped those families that need those free memberships to be able to come in and use the facilities, as well as we also added into the offering inclusive junior membership, which was for juniors who had disabilities or needed help with accessing those facilities, and that's why those two have improved. Move Together and the introduction of the inclusive disability, junior disability.
So I will expect an 80% improvement next year.
We set it at 1.5%.
Okay, I'm going to move us on. I'm going to take two more questions, then Lee and then Alexandrine, and then we'll move to our comments.
So if I've understood correctly, we've got visits up to something like 98% of pre-COVID level, and activity visits up to 95%, which is fantastic if that's the case, and was something that concerned us greatly at the time of COVID and all the rest of it when everything had fallen off a cliff. From what I understand, the health and fitness piece is a bit weaker than the pool side, but fair enough. The bit that I'm not quite clear on is where we are on subscriptions relative to pre-COVID levels, and actually subscriptions are quite important, I think, to making the model as sustainable as possible going forwards. Obviously, things like, as we've discussed, the Ukraine utility costs and cost of living crisis externally, those are things which were outside of the considerations that went into this, but we are going to have to, some of that's going to go on, like the real living wage, and we are going to have to drive income to make this whole thing sustainable. So I'd like to understand a bit more about where we are on subscriptions vis-a-vis pre-COVID.
Yeah, so it's very similar, actually. It's again, without talking specific numbers, I don't have them in front of me, but we're talking about around about 95%.
So good recovery, you're saying?
Well, it's been a slow recovery.
Yes, but it's getting there.
But the last 9 months has accelerated quite considerably. There are other factors to bear in mind as well. So for 2019, particularly for Whitehawks, which is the centre which would have the largest subscription base, as you would call it, is you've got competition. Yeah, you've got competition that wasn't there before that as well, which obviously takes a part of the marketplace. But that centre has seen its largest growth in the last nine months, but we're still probably, rough figures, about 600 off where we were in 2019.
The other point I was picking up on was the week of health and fitness stuff. And looking at some of what the private centres are doing, there seems to be an increased focus on things like weight loss and well-being and stress management and all that sort of stuff, and the benefits that exercise can bring to that. And so you could conceive of, you know, new year, new you type sort of marketing and that kind of stuff to try and push bringing on more memberships and encouraging people to be repeat visitors. And I just wondered how far, I don't know if any of that's being contemplated to be done or whether it's just not yet really being marketed very strongly, but I just wonder if that's not an opportunity.
Yeah, we do all that stuff, smoking cessation, etc. as well. We have actually a dedicated individual who's a community sports manager who delivers a lot of that for us. There's some of the sort of stuff that we do batch depending on report, which are kind of community schemes, but a lot of stuff that you do, we actually do incorporate. So, for example, this week we're taking part in National Fitness Day as well, which has given us a lot of profile out there in the marketplace. But you're right to mention it, but they are avenues that we do follow through with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Stuart or Maggie, did you have anything specific to add on that point from me?
I do. Are you looking at me? I can't. Oh, we're
sorry. I'll do it first and then
You're looking at me.
I mean, I think it's further to Maggie's point initially is that there is a lot more communications going out now about all the activities that are available across both South and Vale, but specifically featuring lots of summer activities and various different other picking up on the new year, new you business as well. But there is a quite a significant amount more that we're seeing coming through now.
Good.
So we should be seeing a lot more kind of subscriptions, membership rises and things like this. But this is from each council that they're sending those out. So it's not GLL as such. It's the two in combined effort. So
thank you.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Sue. Maggie.
Yeah, so really quickly, obviously, Lee, in terms of the KPI, I actually query the same because it's always interesting to understand, well, what is happening to memberships. It's a little bit complex because there's all sorts of different types of memberships, but it is KPIs are set at the beginning of a contract, which is now obviously goes back some years, and it's something probably we should consider when we are re-procuring this contract. So it's really helpful to hear that, and I take your point, and I think it's something we should certainly take away. I know Ben and the team are already thinking about this, so yes, but the reason you don't see it there is because it's not a KPI, but I am reassured by Ben that obviously it's something that both in officer to GLL meetings, but hopefully in JOAB, which are these quarterly joint meetings between us as members, GLL and our officers, is something that will be discussed just to make sure that we are on top of it, even though you don't see it here.
Thank you. Right, last question from Alexandrine.
Well, I think it has been answered quite mostly with, there were on the report, they said the JLL is still facing some remnants from COVID, and I gather it's still about subscription that perhaps are not back to how they were. So I guess, but back on that, I hear a lot about lots of great things has happened in the last 9 months, that everything is just what happens. It just like, is it a one-off or is it like a new strategy that will carry on, or luck, like people are just 2024 we move on, or what happened?
No, I think there's a couple of things. I think one, generally the mood regarding COVID has changed a lot, so that people are moving back into fitness. I think there was a trend for home training as well, and maybe that's just starting to come back the other way. But I think whilst there be pockets of improvement, as I said, each centre has had a clear plan and improvement. I'd like to think that if someone walks into a leisure centre and experienced it today, is improved from where we was 12 months ago, and that naturally has an impact on return visits, recommendations to other to other people. So that combination is not just one thing. I think it's a package put together that is thing that it's not been a complete spike. It's been slow, steady growth month to month.
And we're confident it will continue.
Well, when you look at the plans that are in place in conjunction with the council about what's going to happen at each centre over the next 6 months, I fail to see how that direction of travel is going to change.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a super quick one? Super quick. Really quick. How are you responding to the challenge that's coming from people like F45, CrossFit, Pure Gym? Are you offering a cheap community alternative to what they're doing?
So F45 and Pure Gym actually go to slightly different ends of the market. So what we try to balance ourselves is that it's more of a gym concept. So if you think, well, we've got these brilliant swimming pools, etc. So it's a bit more of a complete holistic package. But related to F45, if you're a member of the gym, not only do you get the gym if you want to train by yourself and classes, we have kind of what we call FI-led classes. So a lot of our gyms now are configured to have quite a significant spatial area where a fitness instructor can hold classes on the gym floor between 6 and 8 people, which is a bit more of a different type of feel, which is a little bit like F45 in terms of how they run it in the studio, a bit of hit type session. So it's not quite the same, but it does kind of tick that box, whilst also trying to have a price range that caters for everybody. So you have a concessionary membership, and then we have obviously the full sort of full package, whether that be just as a centre only, or if you're travelling, trying to take the benefits that we've got more than one centre within a certain location. The one thing with something like Pure Gym is you're not in a position really to compete on price. So the issue for us is to say, well, can we demonstrate to someone that there's better value in coming to us? That's always going to be a battle, but that's why we've got to get all of those touching points right. Like I've said about when you come in, what's that first experience like with the customer? How does it feel when you come in? Some of the arguments could be, and some people might like Pure Gym, but it might be a little bit soulless, and you kind of come in for a revolving sort of turnstile. You don't see anyone. You do work out. You go. That's it. That's not really what we're about. So we've got to make sure we package that right, and customers see the value that they're getting.
Thank you. Can I ask as well, just a thing that you could take away? Perhaps there's an opportunity at some of the centres for Wim Hof ice to go with the sauna. I'll leave that with you.
Wim Hof ice.
You know, ice baths.
Right, maybe you could discuss that.
I'll discuss that separately.
No, let's move on. So on that note, our recommendation, we are being asked to consider the performance of GLL, which we have done, and do we have any comments that we want to make to the cabinets or cabinet members before final assessment on performance is made? So we're specifically talking about GLL performance. Alexandra?
Just well done for improving, and we hope to see that carry on and keep making people happy.
On my solely one experience of my family, we have seen clear improvement on wantage.
Okay.
Lee?
Yeah, likewise. I think they've done well in difficult circumstances with some of the utility bill and cost of living crisis. It's been tough going and the pull back from COVID, but I think overall this is good, and I support the scoring.
Okay, so we want to generally note that clear improvement being made, positive changes, and
is it worth?
I think we need to note possible problems with financial performance.
Yes.
That I think overwhelms all the other performance indicators, and the cabinet need to look at this very closely and looking major improvements.
Because it also could be a quick positive for GLL if things are going on the right track, for them to be able to come back with a constant transparency. They look,
yeah,
and then Sue and the rest of the cabinet can get a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah.
Without jumping into this cold bath.
So KPT6 is a particular concern.
Yes.
We've obviously asked that the cabinet members keep a very close eye on that. KPT6, which is that financial profit and loss one.
Would I be able to just make a quick comment on this? We are absolutely astoundingly lucky, Vale and South, with the contract that we currently have, in that it actually pays us. I'm not sure if our members are aware of this, but in the main vast majority of leisure contracts across other local authorities, that doesn't happen. So the fact that we're actually getting revenue from there, albeit not as much as we would have hoped.
Is it revenue though back from what we've given in the past?
The contract is that they would pay the councils for being able to use our facilities to run their business there. That's the basis of it.
Right, so that's above and beyond the support package that was given, is that?
That is, I can't kind of give you the actual numbers, but what I do know is that it is that, I mean, obviously if you wanted to know that, we could provide you with that information, but the way the contract is configured is that GLL will be paying us money for using our facilities to be able to deliver their service.
It's unusual for us to for local authorities to get the benefit of
exactly that.
Contracts.
So when it comes to when you review that financial KPT6, that needs to be borne in mind insofar as whilst it might not be performing in the way that we would like, or that the actual contract was originally configured to do, it's still not a huge loss in the way. And your question vis-a-vis the how's it impacting on the bottom line, it's still actually kind of bringing in something, even though it's not as much as we would have liked.
Chair, I think that we're here to do a performance evaluation, and let's imagine that GLL didn't exist and we ran the facility.
Yeah.
Would our utility bills be any cheaper? No.
Yeah, no.
Would we abolish real living wage?
No. No. They're an exemplar. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think, but I do think, it particularly in relation to KPT6 and the comments that you chaps made, actually, I think what we also have is an opportunity. Both councils passed motions to have real living wage employers as our contractors. We have one, and I think learning from the challenges and the improvements and the positives of that is a real opportunity for us as well. So
I agree. GLL certainly be praised, and I'll try to get some praise in there.
But I think looking at the challenges around that figure in KPT6, we've got to look at.
We've got to keep an eye on it.
What? Yeah. I agree. A pretty harsh question for us to be asking. But it's part of.
That's kind of what that's our role. We've got to be the arsehole.
But I think that we can note that the cabinet members are confident, and that there is a plan. And
could I just quickly make just one final concluding comment, and just to say thank you to GLL. You're not only supporting our residents, but our four-legged residents as well now. So thank you for that, which I thought was excellent, and maybe we'll see more of those in the future.
I'll get in a here there so that they don't become the complete git.
For anybody watching, that was a reference to the dogs being allowed into the open air pool in Abingdon. And Wallingford. There we go. Lovely. Brilliant. Okay, so I think we generally note the positive report, congratulate your improvement, thank GLL for all their work, and ask cabinet members to keep an eye on KPT6. Lovely. Thank you ever so much, gentlemen, for your time this evening. Thank you very much, Sue and Maggie, for your time this evening, and for bringing that to us. All right, I'm going to move on to the next item, but let's have a 5-minute break. We will reconvene and we will start again at 10 past. Thank you, Heather. We're waiting. Bertie, if you would just pause the screen for a few minutes.
I'm going to send you an email about my style.
Yeah.
The potential income generator.
Yeah.
Thank
Past
you.
my bedtime again.
Past mine too.
Oh my God, it's 8:12.
Yeah. Right. Well, Bertie, are we back live again?
Yeah,
It probably says we weren't off anyway.
yeah.
Sorry.
I muted it.
Well, we're not off.
Thank you, Bertie. Right, welcome back, everybody. We move swiftly on to agenda item 10 for our joint scrutiny meeting this evening, and that is South and Vale Community Safety Partnership performance report, our third performance report of the evening. And I'm very pleased to welcome Councillor Helen Piggles, who is our cabinet member from Vale. And am I right that we have Councillor David Ruane representing South for this item?
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Heritage, but I've covered this portfolio off and on over the last 5 years, so I'm pretty much up to date on it, if you have any particular South issues.
All right, well, you're very welcome. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Okay, Helen, would you like to introduce for us?
Thank you for coming, David. So I'm Helen Pickles, Cabinet Member for Vale, and Office of Present, we've got Diane Foster, who is the Licensing and Community Safety Manager, and we've got Karen Brown and Catherine Ducky, who are Community Safety Team Leaders. We normally have a representative from the police, but I understand we don't have anyone this evening. So if you've got any police-related questions, you'll have to save them until the Chief Constable's presentation to councils, which is in November. So I'm here on behalf of the Community Safety Partnership to present the annual report. The Community Safety Partnerships are made up of representatives from the police, local authorities, fire and rescue, probation and health authorities. These responsible authorities work together to protect local communities from crime and help people feel safe. But the Community Safety Report in front of you has 2 recommendations. Recommendation 1, and this is to note the progress that the South and Vale CSP has made in 2023 to 24 in delivering its priorities and statutory functions. The report provides information on both statutory duties that the partnership is required to deliver and the added value work it carries out in local communities. So those statutory duties include A, the need to develop and publish a community safety partnership plan. B, responsibilities relating to antisocial behaviour. And C, some specific duties to protect vulnerable people. These specific duties include raising awareness of and reporting to the Secretary of State any person identified as victim of modern slavery, and another one is carrying out domestic homicide reviews, DHRs, when a homicide takes place in either district and the victim and offender were in a relationship. We have completed 6 DHRs in South and Vale, and we're currently carrying out a further 2 domestic homicide reviews. The added value work of the partnership includes providing funding towards an outreach service for victims of domestic abuse and funding to help secure victims' homes to enable them to feel safe. Coordination of joint tasking meetings to maximise partnership working and make best use of resources. And C, funding community-based projects that aim to improve resilience. For example, projects that divert young people away from committing violent crime or becoming victims of crime. Recommendation 2 is therefore to support the CSP's view that the 2022-25 plan will continue to deliver core priorities and statutory functions and will focus on these 4 key priorities: domestic abuse, modern slavery and exploitation, serious violence and rural crime. The Community Safety Partnership Plan, which is Appendix A, takes into account the aims of the Police and Crime Commissioners Plan to reduce crime and catch those that offend. So in Appendix A, you've got the plan. Appendix B is the Oxfordshire Strategic Needs Assessment, and Appendix C is the CSP Financial Summary, for 2023 to 24. So the strategic need assessment is nearly 100 pages long. So I'm probably going to struggle with questions on that. But that is prepared for us and takes into, that's what we take into account in setting the plan. So thank you for considering this report, and we will welcome any questions or feedback that you may have.
Thank you, Helen. And I would just say that I've been a councillor now for 18 months, and I've seen firsthand, actually, through my ward work, the Community Safety Partnership work to protect vulnerable people and deal with antisocial behaviour, and it was really excellent. So I'd just like to say thank you as a ward member for the work that all your team did in bringing all kinds of different people together to help a very scared lady. So yeah, thank you ever so much. So who would like to kick us off? Alexandrine?
Just probably, I don't know if it's, it might be a tricky question, is recent event in the news made us think that perhaps some people providing help to people might have certain bias themselves. That how do we make sure that is the council monitoring social media behavior or whatnot to prevent, for example, people supporting victims of domestic violence being in some dodgy website promoting, like how do we screen people who are helping others to make sure that they might not abuse the vulnerability of, or yeah, we don't want someone committing domestic violence to help someone committing domestic violence, is it? So how do we ensure that we don't have bad people in those positions?
Before we answer your question, Alexandrine, I'm very sorry, David. Did you want to add anything to Helen's introduction?
Oh, sorry, David.
Sorry, that's my fault.
You're muted. No, you're on mute.
Sorry, man. I was pressing it. I was dabbing it. I was doing everything to turn the microphone on. Yeah, I was just going to add a bit of context, and I think it might help answering Alexandrine's question as well. Because whilst it's our council team that is making a report to the council's scrutiny committees about this is partnership working, and it is so a lot of the work that is done isn't done by us as a council. It might be done by the police or the probation service or whoever like that. So the bit of the work that you're looking at in our report is where we've worked in partnership, because obviously the police does lots of stuff without us, we do stuff without them, but what you're looking at is the partnership report. And what is the partnership doing? It's fulfilling the objectives that were set by the Police and Crime Commissioner when they gave a grant to us to fund this partnership. So I guess in answer to Alexandrine's question, if I can have a stab at it, we as a council have our own safeguarding and monitoring processes, but similarly the police have theirs, the probation service have theirs, all the other adult social care and children's services, who are also part of the partnership, all have theirs. So I don't think there's one answer. I think it's how each of those agencies respond.
Yeah, I wanted to raise the points to just make sure the awareness.
I mean, in the case of the domestic abuse service, the Oxfordshire Domestic Abuse Service, the district councils actually provide funding to deliver the outreach and support, and that contract was awarded to A2 Dominion and Reducing the Risk, which is the organisation that's doing it. And as David said, they are going to have their own safeguarding, police checks and all that sort of thing. It's not like just recruiting volunteers to give the support. They are actually properly monitored organisations. But I don't know if the officers would want to add anything or whether we've covered it.
Good evening, everybody. No, you've covered that. Yes, every organisation has their own sort of procedures and checks they do on recruitment of staff. So yeah, we're satisfied that will be covered that way.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy? Yeah. Good. Perfect. Thank you. And I am going to ask you guys about. I'm a little bit concerned. Paragraphs 19 to 25. We seem to have significantly fewer case referrals in 23 to 24 than we did in previous year. So we had 211 versus 386. There's also fewer sanctuary scheme referrals. And also the referral figures for 21 to 22 don't seem to match the graph. There should be 97 on the graph, and not 66, I think, from the figures. In any case, we seem to have fewer sanctuary scheme referrals. We also have fewer cameras installed. So my question is really, given that in paragraph 28, we talk about having a dedicated support officer after funding in 2022, should these falling figures not be higher? So I'm just a bit concerned about the apparently falling referral figures between paragraphs 19 and 25.
Could I ask officers? Karen.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Our referrals very much, we take referrals from our partners. They tend to be from the police, and for sanctuary referrals, and that can vary. It tends to, we can put in some small repairs to people's properties in order to keep them safe. One of those tools that we can use are things called guard cams, and I think we've seen a decline in the number of guard cams due to people actually purchasing their own Ring doorbells, for example, in order to protect themselves and to know who's coming to the approaching them when they come onto the driveway. So we do tend to carry out small repairs, but we have seen that decline for covert cameras.
Thank you, Karen. David, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, from a mathematician point of view, we're actually dealing with quite small numbers. So when you look at trends from one year to the next, you can get a bit up and downy, because these are the people who were referred to the partnership. There may have been other people who were addressed in other ways. So in terms of looking for long-term trends, it would be good to be able to do that, but I think you always have to be aware when you're dealing with small numbers. The other thing to look when you're looking back over a few years is COVID, particularly when you're looking at domestic abuse and things. That had a huge impact on people being cooped up together. And so there was a distortion in trends at around about that time as well.
Thank you. Yes, that all makes sense. I think the Ring doorbells are a really simple answer for something, a kind of new phenomenon that we've all seen. Jo, and then Auntie.
Thanks, Kat. I'm going to ask a question about something very tragic and very sensitive. So it's about domestic homicide reviews. The very appalling murder of Katie Hermers Uremia in Wallingford in 2022. From the report on page 69, the domestic homicide review into that case is still ongoing, but her husband or her partner was last year sentenced to life in prison. I just wonder, why is this review taking quite a long time, and how does a review like this fit in with the coronial inquest and with the prevention of future deaths investigation that might be also undertaken?
So I will have a stab at this, but I might ask officers to come in. After a tragic event has happened, then if it meets the criteria to have a domestic homicide review, then we contact the Home Office and say that we're going to do this. There then has to be a period of time when a chair is appointed and the panel is put together, and they gather the evidence and look at it. And the purpose of the review is for the agencies that may have been involved with the people concerned can learn, and from that then feeds into their future operations. That's the wrong word, I know that. So there is an action plan that comes out of it. The report goes back to the Home Office at the end, and then there's an action plan, and the action plan then reports back to the Community Safety Partnership to see that the actions are being carried out. So this is quite a separate process to any guilt to either party, and it's also takes much longer than things like the coroner's report, because just because of the process. I think I've got that right, but would officers like to just see if there's anything to add, Karen or Diane?
Yes, you've covered it very well, Alan. Just also to add, where there's a court case, usually the chair needs to wait until there's certain stages till that has completed, because there's a lot of conversations to be had with the family of the victim as well. So we have to be very mindful of the legal process as well. So that usually has to be completed before we can progress the domestic homicide review.
I just wanted to add that its average time for a domestic homicide review is approximately 18 months.
Okay, so we can perhaps expect a report in the next 6 months or so from now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you. Andy, I think you were first, and then it'll be Rob.
Yeah. I was actually pretty impressed with this. Oh, yeah, bearing in mind as well that a lot of the entire crime thing is going to be down to the police and working with them. But this, the plans on what is within our capacity is good. It's looking through the strategic needs assessment and the presentation of that. I don't know if it's us or if it's the Thames Valley Police and Crimes Commissioner who are responsible for the presentation of the information in there. But, well, one thing did leap out on a really hell's bells thing for me. The peak age group for reported sex offence victims is 11 to 14. That's scary as hell. But the way that the graphs are in that strategic needs assessment, some of them are unusable. I'm looking on, for example, pages 21 and 25 and 31 of the strategic needs assessment, which is pages 123, 127 and 133. By overlaying everything on one line graph, we can't actually make out anything useful on the lower number ones. For example, on page 31, I've got no idea what's going on with sexual offences, drugs and other, apart from the fact they're all very low in comparison to violent crime. There is one example of an excellent graph, page 78, 180, which has got bars rather than lines and numbers associated with bars, so you can take the information out. But I don't know if that's us or if it's Thames Valley, but someone, but a strong recommendation is take a long look at how they're presenting the information in the graphs, because some of them are unusable, some of them are excellent.
This is prepared by the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner.
So it's them.
Yes.
So I've got to get on to Matthew Barber. Good luck with that.
Diane.
So I just like to. It's an Oxfordshire County Council document. It is actually, but I can feed back your observations to them for the next review. But it is actually an interactive document on their website, so you can actually drill down, and it is more. We've just had to put it into this report in that format, but it is actually an interactive document. So on the Oxfordshire website, it's a lot easier to read.
I've done way too much time on data presentation and data analysis and data science, and I was crying at having like lines and everything. It caused me actual physical pain.
Thank you. Ron.
Yes, I noticed this last year as well, but you actually it may be just a typo, but the integrated care board is not the Berkshire, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. It's Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Berkshire West. But then I thought, hang on, why are they part of the crime of this group? Are they actually taking any active role in it? Because I thought they might have checked their own name if they were checking the reports, for example.
You'd hope so.
Particularly since I saw it last year as well.
That's probably a typo, isn't it?
Well,
Page 61 of the report.
Sorry, where are we?
It happens in both reports. It's
Page
all,
61 of the report.
yeah,
Paragraph 5.
Yeah, you're right. It is Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, and Berkshire West.
but it also is in the report that we got from. It's exactly the same in the other report as well. On
No, I didn't pick that up, but yes, you're correct.
And while we're on integrated care boards, Vale is of course covered by two care boards.
Yes.
So we should have them involved as well. Are they involved as well?
I don't know if they are with this, but I'm on the housing, off on a tangent. I'm on the health improvement board and the health and wellbeing board, and I'm also saying, what about West of the Vale? So yeah, I'm very aware of that because
all right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the question of follow is: are the active integrated care board actually part of this community safety plan? I mean, are they actively?
They're part of the partnership. Yes, but this is actually an internal report with a typo in it, as you say. Yeah, which we should have picked up, but yeah.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, I'll start with page 123, 124, that particular graph there, which shows a huge young spike of drugs as an issue. And then when you look at almost every other crime type that there is, it also spikes in that same age window, which would appear to indicate that there's a linkage there. And only, I think, acquisitive crime has an older peak. All of the rest of it tends to be focused in that area. When we look at the location of crime, all of the data indicates that it's clustered around areas of deprivation and around areas of strong nighttime economy. And nobody's going to be shocked by that, but it is still interesting. To me, I was interested that with the responses to modern slavery on I think page 97, 98, that there were a focus on youth and education, and I think they say there, if I can just find it, working with young people, service providers to provide positive pathways for young people by building confidence, communication skills and self-esteem, and working with secondary schools to deliver early intervention projects to raise awareness of exploitation to prevent and protect young people from harm. And that seemed wholly appropriate to me. But priority 3, when you're talking about serious violence and ASBOs and all the rest of it, there's none of that. And it seems to me that when you look at all of these things and you're saying, okay, there are areas of deprivation, there are a particular problem, there's a particular problem with youth, there's a particular...
Can I push you towards a question?
The question I'm asking is why that stuff is not being applied strongly to the serious violence priority. And when I look at all the organisations and everybody that's involved, one that seems to be missing is somehow how we pick up education and how we link in. There's a great piece of stuff in here about what we can do to try and bring people round after they're identified as a problem, but I just would love to see some more things, some more thoughtful things about early engagement, youth services, all the rest of it, to try and get ahead of the game and help those guys out a bit earlier in their lives.
Ellen, would you like to? So the question about Paige.
Yeah, there are the projects that the team commission from the various youth providers do look at the way, particularly things like the way young men or boys are responding to women and that sort of thing, because that's the sort of toxic environment that you get a lot of, get violence in. The projects that are funded.
There's also lots of other things like science and stuff as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I mean, absolutely, that I think is about engaging with young people before they reach that later teens age group. Exactly. It's looking at vulnerability and exploitation, as well as behaviours and attitudes to other people in the community, and these getting more involved with their community rather than sort of being sort of just loose-endish, I suppose. Yeah. I don't know if Karen, you want to say more about the sort of projects that are going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on. Early intervention, yeah, absolutely is the way forward. And we have tried, and we do deliver as many early intervention projects we can do, both in primary, working with our partners, as well as in secondary schools. We've delivered theatre productions in schools around child sexual exploitation to raise awareness of exploitation. We've been working with our police colleagues on a series of books called PC Ben, and they very much are focused on primary school, looking at areas of where people bullying, where kids are bullying other kids because they're different. So there is a lot of work that is going on across in our areas. It's just that we probably haven't had the time to capture everything, but just what we have done is captured everything that the partnership have added value to. So yes, there's just some of those. But I totally agree with you. Early intervention, definitely the way forward.
Thank you.
Please, can I ask about the expenditure figures on page 201? If you could just explain a little bit more about what that shared expenditure is. Is that our contribution to a much bigger cost that everyone else is paying into as well?
Can I refer to Karen again? Yes, thank you, Karen.
Yeah, just bear with me while I just get to that page 201. I think it's the last one, isn't it?
Literally the last page.
Okay. So the first part of the funding is it I suppose in its totality as such, and then the second part in green, that is where it's broken down into a bit more detail. So the shared income is through the Police Crime Commissioners Partnership Fund, and that is something where we have had access. So if we go to the shared income, if I go down the line, so the Safer Streets funding, this was funding that was made available to the Police Crime Commissioner, where they were successful with funding from the Home Office. So that is where we have been able to, I suppose, dip into that funding as such within Southern Vale, where we've been, and that's been used for rural crime, to tackle acquisitive rural crime. So we've shared that funding with West Oxfordshire. And then the next one down, the 111,481, that is that's actually paid for some key funding for some officers where we've been really successful in using their resources. So that has been our anti-slavery coordinator and a problem-solving officer, which we've used. Both those officers are very, very much involved in our work and within our partnership work across the team. So we've had access to both of those officers.
Thank you. And then in terms of the expenditure, I think really the comment is that I think last year we made the same comment as this. This just represents extraordinary value for money for the councils. The value that is added to the public, or the benefit to the public of what is relatively small sums of money is I think very clear from your report. So thank you. Sorry, that wasn't really a question either, and I should really be making myself
Have a word with yourself on that.
Yeah. Alexandrine.
Just out of curiosity, when the council advertise initiative like Ask for Angela in pubs or other, how do we ensure that if someone actually goes to one of their staff and asks for Angela, something happens? How do we make sure that, do we have some people trying it, or how do we ensure that we are not,
because it's got to work.
Of course. And we know that now it's quite advertised that the abuser might know as well what Ask Angela means. So it has to, that person needs help, otherwise it can be.
It's one chance, isn't it, really? To ask, and it's the same with the Safer Streets. And can I ask Karen to comment on that? We did discuss this.
It's always hard to measure how successful Safe Places, the Safe Places scheme is, as well as Ask for Angela. How many people are actually going to the bar specifically to ask for help under the Ask for Angela scheme or the Safe Places scheme? It's a very difficult one to measure, but it is something that we do provide training for. So we provide an ongoing package for staff, because we are very much aware of the turnover in staff in both retail and in the licensed premises. So it is something that we do review annually to make sure that staff are aware of it. And we are also in the process with the Ask for Angela is looking at making some of those premises a safe place, as in it's a safe place where they'll have a sign similar to the Safe Place logo that you'll see in some businesses and other retailers and other organisations, so that they will identify and people will be able to see that is an Ask for Angela premise, so that they will feel safe going. Well, hopefully that's our aim, is to make people feel safe when they go into those premises for a night out.
Just a follow up, when you had those signage, it would be nice to have a website listing all the pubs that adhere to that. So you can, if you have a date with someone, you can check where the safe places are, just in case. Would be nice.
We do have some of them on our web pages already. So if you go onto our community safety web pages, you will see some of those licensed premises that have signed up, and we will be updating that because we're in the process of reviewing those premises. So hopefully you'll see more and more premises wanting to go onto our web pages to be recognised just like that. Absolutely. So people can go on and see where they want to choose to go for a night out.
Just a follow up, would be nice to have like a Facebook post telling the community that they could check those. We have an availability where they can find some safe pubs too. It would be nice to be advertised where the younger or dating age population go, just to make sure that they know they can find a safe place.
To make us all feel very old. It's good. That's a great idea.
Thank you, Alexandrine. Yeah, that's great.
We can do that.
Thank you, Karen. Super conscious of time. Has anyone else got any questions?
Just a very quick one about the domestic homicide review that's taking place at the moment on the murder of Katie Hermes in Wallingford. When the results, the recommendations from that report come through, they'll go to the Home Office to be endorsed.
It'll come back to the Community Safety Partnership, and if the partnership are happy with it, then it will go to the Home Office.
And then who implements the recommendations?
It then gets published, and the different agencies will have their recommendations, and the partnership. I think we monitor them we'll monitor them going forward in the partnership meetings. But can I ask Diane to just confirm that?
Yes, we will monitor them. Yeah, we will monitor the action plan through the Community Safety Partnership. Additionally, I sit on the Oxfordshire Domestic Abuse Strategic Board, and so the report will be taken there as well, and the action plan, so we can disseminate the learning across Oxfordshire, not just within Southern Vale.
Thanks, Diane. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, everybody. Just a final question from me, if that's okay. It's just that we're obviously, next year is the last year of this particular plan. I just wondered, as cabinet members, do you have ideas for whether you would like to see changes in the partnership, or what kind of anticipatory work are you doing to think about how this could be improved even further?
I mean, it really is sort of down to the partnership, but it's also because the funding comes from the obviously Police and Crime Commissioner. It very much has to align with his priorities to a certain extent. I'm sure we will start to review whether our priorities are still right or going forward. But I don't know if would any of the officers like to comment?
Yeah, absolutely, Helen. I absolutely agree with you. It's something that we are going to look at because the Police Crime Commissioner has just published his police crime plan for 24-29. So we will be looking at within our Community Safety Partnership meetings, we will be looking at his plan and discussing that to make sure that his priorities are aligned with ours, or ours are aligned with his. And they're not that dissimilar to what our priorities are. So we don't see any significant, I suppose at the moment, any significant changes. Like I say, we will be looking at them so that they are aligned in order for us to look at how we can secure and continue to secure funding through the Police Crime Commissioner's Partnership Fund.
Lovely, thank you. That's yes, good to hear. Great. So I'm going to bring us now to our recommendations, as Helen outlined at the beginning. Are that we are being asked to note the progress that the Southern Vale Community Safety Partnership made in 23-24 in delivering its priorities and statutory functions, and to support the partnership's view that the 2025 plan will continue to deliver core priorities and statutory functions and focus on the 4 key priorities of domestic abuse, modern slavery, exploitation, serious violence and rural crime. So are we happy to note and support this report and the work that's being done? Alexander?
Oh yeah.
Oh, was that hands up to say yes? Not sorry. No, I think the partnership as a whole does really extraordinary work for really not very much funding.
Particularly looking at some of the case studies, it's quite extraordinary the way they get this multi-agency support for people who would otherwise probably be really quite lost. And so I think it's really great, actually. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I make a off the record comment? Can we ensure that if someone vulnerable asks counsel for help, we don't record them to the Home Office if they are like? I know that there were some cases of local authority or where people were seeking help. There were then rat out to the Home Office because of maybe like immigration. And we aren't sure of that.
I feel like that's something we could consider as motions. Is that something? I don't know. Maybe we could take that discussion on.
Yeah, there was a name because it was part of the hostile environment, but I ask every year, I ask it, and I was unsure that it was not the case. But
I think for this agenda item, it's not appropriate. But as Councillor said, if you were
but that's why I said
council motion through, then that would be somewhere you could debate that sort of issue.
That's why I said it's out of the topic, and I was unsure the previous year that we were not doing that because it was like some rogue council. But yeah, keep awareness that we should still not do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important that we have these discussions, and I seem to have these discussions about what our priorities are as councillors and as representatives of the public. So yes, thank you for raising it. At the same time as I take the point, it's not not relevant to this item.
Yeah, but the meeting is finished, isn't it?
But it is I'm just about to finish it. So yes, I think. Candy, are you happy with our comments to
It's absolutely fine. Yeah.
But yes, I think certainly thank you. Councillors, officers involved for all the work that's done with it and partnership. I think it's a really.
I mean, we've got an amazing team. I mean, what they managed to do is quite phenomenal. It's not a big team, so I think we should, congratulate the team and the team.
So with that, we've had 3 big meeting items important to the public this evening. Thank you everybody for reading all of that and for your questions and comments, and for everybody involved in the meeting. And including everybody who's still online. Well done. All right, thank you. And I will consider that meeting closed. Thank you, Bertie.
He was.